Greeting and welcome to the Intensive Success Growth. I am your host, Nishant Sharma. Please give warm welcome to our guest, Dr. Patton Mcdowell. Dr. Patton is a non-profit consultant, leadership expert, mastermind coach, podcast host, and author. Welcome, Patton.
Thanks, Nishant. Thanks for having me.
Okay, let me start with this. Where were you? What happened? Who were you surrounded with that inspired you to do what you do today?
I was a college student from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and I had an internship at Special Olympics International. And so I was very fortunate to be in Washington, D.C., when the founder of that organization, a woman named Eunice Kennedy Shriver, was still actively involved. And Mrs. Shriver was the sister of President John F. Kennedy. And so very prominent family, very successful, but she was determined to start a nonprofit that became Special Olympics. And it inspired me to consider nonprofit leadership as a career opportunity. Because at first, Nishant, I was thinking, well, this will be a fun internship, but then I'll go get a different job. But instead, it convinced me that maybe there are real leadership opportunities for causes like this. And so for 30 years, I've now been working for and with nonprofit organizations.
Okay, amazing. What are the top three reasons why do people fail?
Well, the nonprofit sector has some challenges. There are a couple reasons. Number one, um, they're not provided the coaching and guidance they need to succeed. So, in other words, they start working in a nonprofit, they're excited at first, but then they don't get the support they need. And so they end up leaving. A second reason, the nonprofit sector does not compensate as well, although it's getting better. And that's something I hope that the sector is going to improve, because there are so many talented individuals who want to be part of good causes. But that leads to the third challenge, which is sometimes they take on more than they can handle. You get into nonprofit work and you're trying to do three jobs instead of one. And so those are some of the problems or challenges I've seen mostly.
Yes, right. What are the top three success secrets that other can model from you?
Well, I couple things. One, I feel like I've been fortunate, like you, starting a podcast has been a wonderful experience in getting to know people from all over the world. And so my podcast, it's called Your Path to Nonprofit Leadership, allows me to learn from leaders in the nonprofit sector who their challenges, kind of just like the questions you're asking, I try to ask as well. But that's something I feel like a lot of leaders need to do, is to effectively network. In other words, don't only focus on your work, but find ways to connect with people around your city, around your state, around the world, because you can learn from them. And so that's one thing that I think I have been successful doing. Um, I've also managed to surround myself with talented people. I've been fortunate to have mentors like Mrs. Shriver 30 years ago and others. So I'm always telling people new in their career, find people that are ahead of you on the leadership path, and then they can help you. And Nishant, the biggest thing you can see behind me, I'm a big reader. I I think you need to be a lifetime learner through books, through podcasts, through any means you can, because that's what's going to make you get better.
Okay. What's your greatest failure story? What did you learn and how did you recover from it?
Well, I thought I was on the fast track to leadership with Special Olympics. And I applied for a job that I thought I would surely get, but I didn't get it. And I was very disappointed and thought, wow, I've worked hard. I've done everything right. Why didn't I get the job? But I realized I needed to step back and do a more thorough self-assessment, and look at my skills and experiences. So I learned from that because in this organization, I was really good at programming, but I was not good at, nor did I have experience in fundraising or financial management. So instead of just being disappointed, I realized I needed to learn more in those areas. If I was going to move up and be a leader, I needed to address those areas that were a weakness. And so I went back and got another degree, an MBA, to help strengthen my experience there. And it paid off and allowed me to get the next job later. And now it's helped me with my consulting for the last 14 years because I feel like I have a better grasp of the leadership that I'm coaching and teaching.
Okay. So, what motivates you within?
Helping nonprofit leaders succeed. Because Nishant, the causes that these organizations represent are fantastic. They're teaching literacy, they're feeding the hungry, they're providing shelter for the homeless. These are issues all over the world. And I know that if I can help these individuals be successful, their organizations will succeed. And then everything they're trying to do will, get better. And so that motivates me to know that my work indirectly will help address some of the challenges we're facing all over the world.
Okay. What's your company motto?
We help talented individuals excel at nonprofit leadership. We help talented individuals excel at nonprofit leadership. I believe there's a lot of talented people who aren't sure about their next step. I want to help someone find and succeed in their next step, whatever that might be.
Who is your ideal customer?
Someone who's committed to the nonprofit sector, but wants to get better. Like you and I've talked about, they need to be a learner. They need to be a lifelong learner and accept coaching and teaching. But someone like that is a perfect partner for me because I think I can help them identify what else they can do to strengthen their abilities. And so I've been very fortunate to work with a couple hundred nonprofit organizations, and the most successful are ones that simply want to get better and are willing to invest the time and energy to do so.
Okay. So, how do you find your ideal client?
Um, I I try to stay in touch with previous clients. Again, many of my clients are repeat. I've done more than one project with them, or they refer me to someone else. So I think if you take care of your previous clientele, that can lead to even more. And so I have been fortunate that I don't have to go after and look for a lot of new clients. I rely on the network I've already built. And so if I work for one organization in this state, they might refer me to a sister organization, 2 states over or somewhere else in the United States right now. So that's been my ability. Now, I think the podcast and my website, and I just published a book that hopefully will help me get the word out. And those are also ways that I can maybe find new clients.
How do you handle rejections?
I try to learn from it. Just like the story I shared with you when I thought I had my next job and I failed to get it, instead of getting angry, I'm like, all right, what could I have done better? And so for me, when I do not get a project that I was hoping to get, I need to put myself in the shoes of the client or potential client. Maybe I didn't articulate my project very well. Maybe there are things I could have done differently, but that's been my approach to, again, using failure as a means to learn.
Okay. If any organization like non-profit organization don't have money to pay, so how can you help to them?
What I try to do is provide resources that can help them. In other words, if they need information about raising money, I can help provide at no charge
So,
some coaching or refer them to a book or a website or other resources that can help them address their needs. Because I know that if I help them now and they strengthen their own financial organization, they could pay in the future.
yes, yes, right.
And so that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, it's like a win-win situation.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. So how do you start your day?
Well, I get up early. I'm an early riser. And what I like to do is some reading and I listen to podcasts. I like to kind of step back from my daily business and think more long term. And I find that if I listen to podcasts or read about strategy or business development or marketing, that gives me ideas when I have the most energy. And so if I can get an hour, maybe 2 hours of that deep thinking, I feel like I get more done the rest of the day when I have to begin, the meetings and other activities of my work.
Okay. What are you grateful for today?
Family. I've been very fortunate to have a wife and children who also believe in nonprofit leadership. And so they, in fact, are part of the business. My daughter is the engineer for my podcast. She recently graduated from the University of Southern California and is now part of our firm. And my other children also support this firm, as does my wife. So family is what I would probably start with there.
Okay. How young are you?
I'm 55 years young.
Okay.
So
Oh,
hopefully I've learned some good things during that time.
okay. You are not 55-year young. You are 18-year young with 37-year experience.
I like that even better. Yes.
Yes. Okay. So, um, what are your top three like books which you can recommend to anyone?
Number one is a book called Deep Work by Cal Newport. And that's one that he speaks of making sure we find time to really think deeply about strategy because it's so easy to get lost in your day with minute activities. Another book that's been really meaningful to me is called Getting Things Done by David Allen. A lot of my organizational strategies, if you will, and systems are inspired by David Allen. And I'm trying to think of a third one. Probably Simon Sinek, Start with Why. Simon Sinek, Start with Why, has always helped me kind of think about the strategy for my business. So those are three that I would lift up.
Okay. What advice you will give younger yourself?
I wish I read more when I was younger. I've found the reading, and I'm glad you asked about book recommendations. But I think when I was in my 20s and 30s, I was not the student I am now. I have a greater appreciation for knowledge and learning because I know I have so much more to learn. But in my 20s and 30s, I guess I just assume, well, I'm busy, I don't have time. But we always have time. It's what we decide to do with it. And
Yes,
so instead of watching TV, maybe we could be reading a book.
yes, yes, right. TV is like dumb box.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Okay. How can we support you?
Well, I would love for anyone listening to watching this to check out my podcast. It's called Your Path to Nonprofit Leadership. And also, I have a book that you and I've talked about. It's also titled Your Path to Nonprofit Leadership. So, for anyone listening or watching, thinking about the nonprofit profession, I feel like I might have some good things to offer. So they can check out my website, pattonmcdowell.com, and find out more about the podcast or the book or some of the coaching and training that I do.
Okay. So, what would you like to say about your guest experience on this show?
Well, I really appreciate your questions because it makes me think about my journey. Because, like you said, I'm 55 years young, so I've learned some things, but you've allowed me to think about what inspires me, why that I love the work that I do. And again, it's great that you have reached out because you are making a network around the world. I know literally through this podcast. So congratulations to you.
Okay. What's your final word?
Consider nonprofit in your community, get involved. Even if you don't want to work at a nonprofit, you can volunteer, you can support financially, but nonprofit organizations build our communities everywhere in the world. And so
Yes,
I'm hopeful that everyone will look for opportunities to contribute to the nonprofit sector.
yes, yes. Thanks, Patton, for sharing your wisdom with us. On the behalf of our community and team, we really appreciate you. Until the next time, all good wishes to you.
Thanks, Dijon.
My pleasure.